Okay, this will be your notes for lesson 1-6. It's on relations. And all a relation is just a set of ordered pairs. If you look at your vocabulary, you will see that a relation is just a set of ordered pairs. So if I just wrote some ordered pairs up here, like 2, 1, negative 2, 3, 4, negative 5, whatever. That would be a relation. A set of ordered pairs is a relation. Now, just a real quick vocabulary review. And when we're talking about relations and ordered pairs, we're obviously going to be talking about the coordinate system or the coordinate plane, which is really basically the same thing. And we're talking about what you see over here to your right. It's just where your x-axis, which is your next two vocabulary words, and your y-axis intersect. Remember, your x-axis is the horizontal axis. Your y-axis is your vertical axis. Okay? The point right here, which is in the center, point 0, 0, is called the origin. That is your origin. Okay? Your x-coordinate, when we write ordered pairs, we write them with the x-coordinate first, the y-coordinate second. Okay? Always in that order. X first, the horizontal axis first, the y-axis second, the vertical axis. So for example, if I marked this point right here and wanted to write the ordered pair for that, remember that your positive numbers on the x-axis go to the right from the origin, so your positive numbers would go this way. Your negative numbers go to the left, so that's going to be a negative what? 1, 2, 3, 4. So my x-axis is on, that point is on negative 4 on the x-axis. Where is it on the y? Again, remember on the y, your positives go up, your negatives go down, so it's going to be negative 1, negative 2. So we would name that point as negative 4, negative 2. Okay? Now, just a few more vocabulary words. We talked about a relation is just a set of ordered pairs. Mapping we're going to talk about in a few minutes. It's a way to represent a ordered pairs. I'll show you more about that in just a few minutes. The domain of a relation are the x-coordinates. Okay, the domain is going to be the x-coordinates. The range is the y-coordinates. Okay? Then you have what we call the independent and the dependent variables. The independent variable is the one that doesn't depend on the other one, obviously. That's, from the definition of independent, you know what that is. It doesn't depend on the other variable. It is usually the x-coordinate. The dependent variable is the one that it's wherever it is going to depend on the other variable. For example, it may be money earned from babysitting. Okay, the number of hours that you babysit would be independent because that's not the number of hours I babysit doesn't determine or it's not dependent on the money. But the money that I earn babysitting would be dependent on how many hours I babysat. So my dependent variable is usually the y. Okay, so independent and dependent variables. Again, we'll talk about that again a little bit more detail in just a few minutes. Okay, so look at this first example. I have a relation here because I have a set of ordered pairs, right? It says express it as a table. Okay, so a table, all you have to do, these are easy ones. You're just going to make a table of your x and your y coordinates. My x coordinates are 4, negative 2, 2, and 0. With the x coordinate, the y 4, my y coordinate is 3, negative 2, negative 1, 2, 4, and 0, and negative 4. There's your table. Easy enough. Okay? Next it says to do a graph. Alright, a graph, you know how to plot these ordered pairs. Remember your x and your y coordinates. Remember the x comes first and then the y. So if I'm going to plot the ordered pair 4, 3, I'm going to count over on my x-axis to 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and up to 3 on my y. 1, 2, 3. So that would be my ordered pair of 4, 3. Alright, my next ordered pair is negative 2, negative 1. So I'm going to count over to negative 2 on my x-axis because my x goes first. 1, 2, down to negative 1. And there's my point, negative 2, negative 1. Alright, 2, 4. Count over to 2 on my x-axis and up to 4 on my y. 1, 2, 3, 4. And there's my point, 2, 4. And then 0, negative 4. Go to 0 on my x-axis, down to negative 4 on my y. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then I have the point 0, negative 4. Now I've expressed that relation as a table. I've expressed it as a graph. Now it says to express it as a mapping. Okay, let me show you what a mapping is. With a mapping, basically you're going to have your domain, which I told you is what? Your x coordinates, and your range, which I said was your y coordinates. And you're going to list them and you're just going to draw arrows to the one that they match. So example, for my domain is going to be my x coordinates. So again, I have 4, negative 2, 2, and 0. For my range, I have 3, negative 1, and negative 4. I don't have to list that negative 4 twice when I'm listing my range. If it's in there twice, you just put it on. You just have to put it in your range, your list of your range, one time. So 4 maps to 3, or is with the 3. Negative 2 goes to negative 1. 2 goes to negative 4. And 0 goes to negative 4. So I don't list it twice. I just draw arrows to the from the 2 and the 0 to the negative 4. And that's the mapping. So I've expressed it as a table, as a graph, and a mapping. Okay, so it's really pretty easy. Then look at the second part of this question. It says determine the domain and the range. Well, we've really already done that, right? When we made the table, we got the x and the y, or especially when we did the mapping. So all you're going to say is, okay, my domain is equal to the set of 4, negative 2, 2, and 0. My range is equal to the set of 3, negative 1, and negative 4. Again, I don't have to list that negative 4 twice. I only have to put it once, even though it's in 2 of my ordered pairs. Okay? So again, the big thing to remember is your domain is your x, your range is your y, and then remember, you got your table, your graph, and your mapping. Okay? Let's try another one. All right, express, and then I've given you that relation as a table, a graph, and a mapping. So again, table's pretty easy, x and y. All right, I've got negative 2, 5, 3, negative 4, negative 2, 6, negative 1, negative 1. All right, there's my table. Now I'm going to express it as a graph. I'm going to go plot my ordered pairs, starting with the first one, negative 2 on my x-axis. So I go to count over to negative 2, 1, 2, up to 5, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. There's my point, negative 2, 5. Go over to 3, negative 4, so go to 3 on my x, 1, 2, 3, down to negative 4, 1, 2, 3, 4. There's 3, negative 4. Negative 2, 6. Okay, may have to erase this. That's going to be right over my point. So that was negative 2, 5. All right, so go over to negative 2, 6. It's going to be right above it. That point right there. Oops, sorry, I don't know what I just did. Let's try that again. There we go, negative 2, 6. All right, and then negative 1 is right there. And there's my relation expressed as a graph. All I did was plot those points. Okay? All right, and then express it as a mapping. Do like you did before. I'm going to have my domain and my range. Okay, and I'm just going to kind of draw these little rectangles, ovals, whatever you want to do. All right, -2, 3. Now, do I have to put -2 in there twice? No, because if I'm doing my domain, it's only in there one time. -1. And for my range, I've got 5, -4, 6, and -1. Now I'll do my napping. -2 goes to 5, and it goes to 6. 3 goes to -4, and -1 to -1. And there's my mapping. So I've done my table, my graph, and my mapping. Okay, again, determine the domain and the range. Pretty much already done that. My domain is -2, 3, and -1. My range is going to be 5, -4, 6, and -1. Okay? Now, let's practice. Let's go back to that independent and dependent variables. Don't let this freak you out. Just stop and think about these. Again, let's think about what it is. Independent means it doesn't depend on anything else. Okay? It's totally self-sufficient, so to speak. Dependent means it's going to depend on something else. For example, the amount of money, in the example I gave earlier, the amount of money that I earn is going to be dependent on the number of hours that I work. Okay? The hours that I work isn't dependent on how much money I make. It's the other way around. So the amount of money would be the dependent variable. Okay? The hours that I work would be the independent variable. So look at number 3 here. In warm climates, the average amount of electricity used rises as the daily average temperature increases and falls. Let me back up and read that again. In warm climates, the average amount of electricity used rises as the daily average temperature increases. So it's saying what? As it gets hotter, we use more electricity. And falls as the daily temperature decreases. So our electricity use goes down when the temperature goes down. So what's going to be my independent and my dependent variables? Well, my independent variable is going to be what? The temperature. Is the temperature dependent on the electricity? No. So my independent variable is the temperature. Okay? And my dependent is going to be my electric use. Let me back that up, sorry. My dependent variable is going to be my electric use, because my electric use depends on the temperature outside. The hotter it is, the more electricity I use to keep it cool inside. If it gets cooler outside, my air conditioner or my electric use doesn't come on as much. I don't use as much electricity. Okay? So you've got to look at it and think through which one is dependent on the other one. All right, pause the video, you do number 4, and then come back and check yours against mine. Okay, I'm assuming you've already done number 4. It says the number of calories you burn increases as the number of minutes that you walk increases. All right, so again, I want to know which one is my independent variable and which one is dependent. Okay, so I've got calories burned and miles walked. Which one is not dependent on the other one? Well, the miles walked. Okay, my miles walked isn't dependent on how many calories I burn. It's the other way around. The more miles I walk, the more calories I burn. So my burning calories is dependent on the number of miles that I walk. So my calories burned is dependent on how many miles that I walk. Okay? So that kind of helps you with those independent and dependent variables a little bit. All right, the next thing I want to talk to you about is in looking at a graph and interpreting what is that graph saying. Okay, look at this one. The graph represents the temperature in Mrs. Smith's classroom on a cold day. Describe what happens in the graph. So we see the temperature is over here on our y-axis. We see our time is our x-axis, and remember we talked about independent and dependent variables, that the independent variable is usually the x, the y is the the dependent variable. So the temperature is going to be dependent on the time of day. So when we look at this graph and we start thinking about what's going on in this graph, well, it's a cold day. It tells us in our directions up here. All right, so we're looking at that, and we see it starts out, the temperature starts out lower, and then it goes up. So that could be why. Maybe they came into class, they came into school, and they turned the heater on, or they turned the heat up, so it'd be warmer in the class. And then what happens? As the day goes on too, it may get warmer outside, so then it's getting warmer in the classroom. But also what? What's going to happen? We see it going up and down, up and down, up and down, slightly, and then it takes a big jump down as later in the day. Well, that's what? Probably they come in, they turn the heater on, and the temperature varies up and down throughout the day as the heater comes on and off throughout the day. And then what happens? At the end of the school day, what? They turn the heater back off and the temperature goes back down. So what I want you to be able to do is basically look at a graph and think, what is this graph saying? What is this telling me is happening? What can I infer or look at this graph and think is going on? Okay? So we could think what? They come in, they turn the heater on, it's going up and down throughout the day. It may also be going up because the temperature as you go throughout the day is getting warmer, goes down at night, same kind of things. All right, let's look at another one. You take just a minute, pause the video, take just a minute and look at this graph and see if you can tell me what you think is going on, and then come back and we'll talk about it. Okay, on this one it says the graph represents Bill's speed as he swims laps in a pool. Describe what is happening in the graph. Well, let's see. This is our time, is our x, speed is our y. So what happens? He starts out, he builds up to a speed, and he comes back down. Let me change my pen color so that you can see it. So he's building up to a speed, and then he comes back down to virtually stopped. Then he builds back up, and he comes back down. He builds back up, and he comes back down. So think about it. It says he's swimming laps in a pool. What happens when you're swimming laps? Okay, you start out at the wall, you stop, you get in the pool and you start, well, I guess you're stopped, yeah, and then you start and you swim and you build up speed, and you get what? To the other side, to the other end of the pool, and you got to do what? You got to turn around and come back. So that's what's happening in this graph. He's starting out, he's swimming to the other end of the pool, he's got to get to the other end, he stops, he turns around, and he comes back. Stops, turns around, and comes back. So again, it's just a matter of looking at a graph and thinking about what is going on in that graph. Okay? So today's lesson is all about relations, ordered pairs, okay? And looking at graphs and determining what is going on, determining independent and dependent variables, the domain and the range. It's all about the ordered pairs. And what do those ordered pairs mean? What do they stand for? Okay? So we'll do lots of practice in class tomorrow. Just make sure you've got all this vocabulary straight in your head, that you understand how to make a table, that you know how to plot the points on the coordinate plane. If that's a problem for you, you need to see me so that we can go over that, and that you know how to determine the domain and the range. All right, you have a great night. I will see you tomorrow, but most importantly, remember, Jesus loves you. Goodbye.